When Vladimir Putin made the decision to invade Ukraine, the rest of the world was justifiably alarmed. The outpouring of support for the Ukrainian people from all over the globe as they struggle to defend their homes from the invading enemy has been nothing short of amazing. It's inspiring to see such unity condemning the actions of a dictator and wanting to help those suffering because of his actions. In the realm of politics, however, such unity is, as always, harder to find. Some believe that the United States should engage in military intervention, sending our own soldiers to fight alongside the Ukrainians.
We could be also attacking a lot of the government institutions and, again, the oligarchs and their way of life through cyber attacks. And it will be difficult to get actual physical support, but I think we should be looking at that.
Others are urging economic sanctions against Russia in the hopes that squeezing that country's economy will force Putin to reconsider his actions. Lindsey Graham, with characteristic recklessness, posted a not-so-subtle message encouraging the assassination of the Russian president. And many neocons are pushing for a no-fly zone, something that can only be enforced by means of NATO or US aircraft. In other words, starting an air war with Russia, not to mention the casual tone in which some people talk about nuclear war. Following a costly 20-year engagement in Afghanistan, the last thing Americans want or need is another war, especially with a nuclear power like Russia. On the other hand, sanctions, which have already been imposed to a shocking degree from banking to Netflix, there doesn't seem to be a sector of Russian life that hasn't been sanctioned by the Western world. However, sanctions have a poor track of accomplishing anything useful, while at the same time punishing innocent people who feel the impact of economic damage the most. But the most troubling stateside reaction to Putin's invasion has been a tendency to demonize all things Russian, as if every person from that enormous country is supportive or responsible for the actions of their dictator president. Several states have banned the sale of Russian vodka in liquor stores. Representative Eric Swalwell has suggested that Russian students studying in America should be expelled from their university and deported. A university in Italy decided to stop teaching the work of Dostoevsky, one of Russia's greatest writers who himself faced persecution from his government. Even our feline friends are not immune from insanity. The International Cat Federation has banned Russian-bred cats from its competition in an alleged rebuke to Putin. This is clearly absurd. None of these actions will do the slightest thing to improve the plight of the Ukrainian people. Bans on Dostoevsky, Russian cats, and vodka won't stop Putin from realizing his ambitions. It's simply a way for people to feel like they're helping when in fact they're doing the opposite. While some of these ideas are silly, others are downright scary. The suggestion that we rob teenage students of their homes and their education simply because they come from Russia is extremely dangerous. Fortunately, Swalwell's idea was shot down almost as soon as it was proposed, but his attitude is not without precedence that we would do well to remember. In the aftermath of the terrorist attack on September 11, 2001, the country was terrified and angry. The urge to lash out in revenge was strong, and there were those who were happy to regard all Muslims as responsible for the actions of the few. The Department of Justice keeps a record of crimes and discriminatory actions taken against Muslims in response to the attack, and the ACLU and other civil rights groups rightly warned the broad Islamophobia was not the proper response to a very legitimate grievance against Osama bin Laden and the Taliban. During the First World War, anti-German sentiment in America rose to the point where businesses were refusing to serve people with German-sounding last names. Schools and universities stopped teaching German language courses, and some German books were even burned. In a meaningless act of virtue signaling, politicians redubbed German foods like sauerkraut and hamburgers as liberty cabbage and liberty sandwiches. By World War II, the government had actually herded German and Japanese immigrants into camps over fears that they might be aiding the Axis powers against the United States. There was no trials, no semblance of due process. At that time, nationality and heritage alone were enough to justify violating the most basic human rights of civilians. I want to use these examples to make the point that it's important to view people as individuals, not mere products of their nationality or ancestry. The story of Ukraine is understandably compelling. We like to root for the scrappy underdog against the evil empire. It's an idea baked into our movies, our literature, and our children's cartoons. But we must resist the urge to view real-world situations in cartoonish terms. People are not inherently evil by virtue of having been born in Russia. Like any country, the population is diverse in their opinions and outlooks on the world. Many of them oppose the invasion and hate Putin and are courageously protesting against it, even as their social media accounts are being shut down and censored. Some of them are too busy trying to eke out a meager living to even pay attention to the world's events. It's also important to remember that it's impossible to tell to what extent the Russian people support Putin or his actions. While in America, we are accustomed to massive protests every time the president does something we don't like, Russians don't enjoy that same freedom. For them, the simple act of protesting could get them arrested or even shot. It's easy to post a yellow and blue flag on your social media profile, while the cost of doing so isn't the safety of your family. Think about it this way: would you want to be held responsible for everything your government does? Do you want the international community to judge you based on the actions of Joe Biden or Donald Trump? Imagine the outrage if foreign governments started deporting American students, or refusing to trade with our businesses, or teach Ernest Hemingway in the classroom because they don't like our president, not realizing that we mostly don't like him either. The failure to treat people as individuals is cruel and inhumane. We should have sympathy for both the Ukrainians who want part of this war and for the Russians who despise it as well. Direct your anger where it belongs, towards the political leaders who aggress against their neighbors, or who exploit the crisis for their own gain. Otherwise, we risk sinking into this kind of ugly and fearful prejudice that history seldom looks kindly on.